We'll talk more about the coronavirus in a second. First, the stock market fall today. How serious?
Well, look, it is very serious. Certainly the biggest fall I've experienced while I've been in journalism. I think the worry for Australia is that we have the superannuation system, which obviously spreads share ownership very, very widely. And so far more people feel the pain of a large share market fall than was the case 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's worth pointing out that in the late 80s, of course, in October 1987, the market fell by even more than it has today, by about 20%, 25%. And I guess the silver lining there was that the macroeconomic consequences of that fall were not that great. But I just worry that this time around it won't be that same situation for the reasons that I just said, because so many more people own shares via their super. And of course, they'll naturally look at their balances, especially if they're about to retire, I might add, and rein in their expenditure. And of course, when everyone does that, there'll certainly be consequences for the broader economy.
You described me to a T. What caused this one?
The share market drop. Well, look, there's so much volatility of the growth outlook, but it's quite possible that markets can bounce back. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty at the moment about the nature of this disease, how far it's going to spread. I mean, I certainly agree with your editorial before. I think this is an enormous overreaction. I think, in the history of pandemics, this virus is fairly mild. In the vast bulk of cases, people will just get mild flu-like symptoms. It seems that the reaction has been extraordinarily disproportionate.
Now, what I don't get, though, you talk about disproportionate, though, this market thing, the main trigger just today seems to have been the failure of Russia and Saudi Arabia to come to a deal about how much oil to release into the market.
It's a good thing.
Russia wants much, and Saudi Arabia wants now even more. They couldn't come to a deal, and so that's going to depress the prices and hopefully for them drive out shale oil producers in America and all that kind of stuff. Cheaper oil sounds to me pretty good. So why is the market having kittens about it?
Well, look, I think the oil issue is actually a separate issue, basically for the reasons you just outlined. This cartel, which, if you like, has been ripping off the world for many decades, is showing signs of breaking down, and that's a very good thing for Australia, which of course is a net oil importer. Indeed, it's a very good thing for all Western countries. The OPEC system plus Russia is just a giant wealth transfer from the rest of the world to the Middle East and Russia, and if the oil price falls, that's a great thing for everyone else, because of course oil is a major input to production, and it's a major part of consumers' weekly budgets if they have a car. So I think that's actually a great thing, and I think all the Reserve Bank's models would actually be showing that this enormous fall in the oil price, if it's sustained, and that's a crucial question, if it's sustained, will actually be a huge boost to economic growth, which actually may well offset to some extent the fall in growth that we're going to see from the virus impacts themselves.
That's very interesting, because it seems to me from what you're suggesting, you're actually ascribing most of the panic today still to the coronavirus, rather than what a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the Saudi-Russia standoff. But look, even before today, Adam, the Morrison government was planning a rescue package, now tipped by a lot of reporters to be between $5 billion and $10 billion to try and stimulate the economy, because we seem to be in a hole. What are you expecting them to do?
Well, they're probably not very much. Obviously, the government is reluctant to write cheques to people because they've criticised for a decade what the Labor government did back during the financial crisis, for right or wrong reasons. But I think the package will be relatively small. It's going to be between $5 and $10 billion. That sounds a lot, but it's a drop in the ocean, really, in a $2 trillion economy. I just don't see there being much impact. I think it doesn't go far enough. I think if they really want to boost the economy, they need to do something bolder, like, as I've suggested, basically suspend temporarily compulsory super payments so that we all get a 10% pay rise. That would be an extraordinary boost to the economy. And also, it'd be a lot more efficient too, because people would be spending their own money. It's not like the government would be going to borrow money from foreigners to write us checks, which is effectively what happens when they engage in these cash splashes.
And as you point out in your excellent column, of course, what it also means is not such a big hit on the budget itself. It's people's own money.
Yes, look, that's right. Well, in fact, the budget would be helped dramatically because super would be taxed as ordinary income. So actually, you'd have a surplus, and you'd have students at the same time if you suspended those payments. The only loser, of course, would be the financial services sector. They would squeal about it. But of course, politically, this is very difficult because the Senate, I don't think, would agree to that, sadly. So I think Another option perhaps is to bring forward the 2024 tax cuts to right now, the whole lot. That's something the Senate might agree to, given these extraordinary circumstances, and given the Labor Party has actually supported at least the first two stages of that plan. Maybe they can get the third stage over the line as well. But just tweaking taxes here and there, offering kind of investment subsidies. I mean, the vast bulk of households don't even know what those things are, so that's actually not going to help them feel more confident. I mean, from the very start, I've been very disappointed that there haven't been stronger messages on just explaining this virus to people and saying, look, it is relatively mild, because all people are hearing is the word pandemic, and to most people that sounds pretty scary.
That's the whole problem, though, Adam. There are no votes in a politician from playing down a virus that, well, they don't know, could even get worse, who knows. There's absolutely no votes in it. So I think it really requires leadership from other people to step up and dare to say, as you have, perhaps this is really a little over the top. But, mate, the animal spirits in the market, they say, and boy, we've seen that. Adam Creighton, thank you so much indeed for your time.